Okay, so let's talk about rhythm and cycles. So we tend to view the world as linear. We work in linear fashion. We see things as either ups or downs or straight lines. When in reality, that's not how we as human beings work. We work in cycles, and there are 5 distinct cycles that we go through every single day. We have those 90-minute cycles, so the ultradian rhythms. We have our daily rhythm, circadian, dictated by light and melatonin and sleep and all of that stuff. We have a weekly rhythm, the circadian rhythm. We have monthly rhythms, which scientifically it's debated, but we can call it the lunar cycle. It's particularly well linked to female hormones. And then we have the yearly rhythm, the circannual rhythm, which is the one we're going to focus on in this training. Now, if we were to chuck you in a cave, turn out all the lights, give you nothing, all of this stuff would still happen. It happens to you biologically. Yes, there will be some slight shifts, particularly in the circadian stuff because of the lack of light, but these cycles will still continue inside of you. They're just part of what you experience as being a human, as being something with biology. And your biology responds to these rhythms, which makes it important, particularly if you are a high performing woman and you want to be at your best, you want to stay in the fire, minimize the amount of time you spend in the fade, be productive, achieve whatever it is you're looking to achieve. So these 5 rings are highly applicable to us. And in learning to harness them and make a shift from this relentless linear model, which tends to lead to failure, we can actually increase our capacity. We can learn to manage our capacity better, as well as stay productive regardless of what's going on in these cycles, because we can match our behavior to them. Now, it's important to note that these obviously move from the micro to the macro. So a 90-minute cycle is more of a micro cycle, whereas the circannual cycle is a macro cycle. It's longer, it's bigger. So the easiest thing to focus on is the macro because it's bigger. You could go and fine tune it right down to a 90-minute cycle, but for many people, that's going to be overkill. It's not necessary. Yes, in some instances, we look at weekly and monthly, particularly in the R4 program, for example, where we talk about building your recovery rhythms. We do look at that on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis. But at a more general view, it's not particularly granular because it doesn't need to be. Instead, we can focus in on the seasonal aspect of it. So, the seasons. Now, most of us would agree that there are 4 seasons. My mentor and the work he does, they actually apply 5 seasons. I tend to work off a more Celtic calendar because that's part of my ancestry. So I work with 4, and everything we do in Project Tempest is centered around 4. We may introduce the 5th, which would be a late summer, but for the purposes of what we're doing, this is more than sufficient. So when we look across the season, each season has a different emphasis. And that emphasis has an impact on our capacity levels, it has an impact on our hormones, it has an impact on our energy level, it impacts everything. And if we can learn to set ourselves up with these different emphases and ensure that we stay in line with them, then we're going to have a better result. It's doing the right work at the right time. So spring, this is all about setting your aim. Most people, they start the new year off by trying to set up their vision. They try and set their goals for the year, when really spring is the time to be doing this. This is when we can set our aim. And the key things we want to look for is our energy being aspirational, or is it becoming angry? If we know it's becoming angry and we're getting restless and irritable, then we're not aligning with the spring's aim. If we are feeling very much aspirational and we're able to see the big vision, then we know we're lined up with it. Summer is all about firing, going after it. This is where your raw capacity is at its highest level. It's where we've got the most resources available to us to go out and get stuff done. But even within that, capacity still has a limit, and we have to be mindful. We have to be looking at our state and asking, are we in a state of joy or are we in a state of anxiety? If we're pushing into anxiety and restlessness, then we probably didn't do the aiming right in the spring, because each one of these has a knock-on effect. If you nail the previous one, the follow-on becomes easier because it's all linked. It's all a cycle. These are not individual things. Although we look at them in an individual manner, they're all linked together. And what you do in the previous season has a knock on to the next season, the next season, the next season, and so on and so forth, because it is a continual cycle. When we look at autumn, this is where we start to cut things. This is where we remove the things that we don't want anymore, the things that are not serving us. This is where we're trying to be more analytical in what we're doing. It's where our actual cognitive peak is as such. Our working memory is at its highest. So that's where we can do this analytical work. But we need to be mindful that we don't fall into the trap of becoming judgmental. And then winter is where the vast majority of people go inwards. This is where we start to think on deep recovery and restoration, and we start to look to our identity. Like, who have we become across this year? And how's that going to influence us moving forward? So this is where we tend to sit down and we do a lot of the internal work. We're trying to become clearer. And on the flip side of that, we want to avoid the fear, because most people fear winter because they can't do as much. And if you're a high performer and much of your identity is based around your ability to produce and to do and to be on it all the time, winter's not a great time unless you learn to move with the seasons and you learn to align your capacity state, your mindset, and all of these different things with the seasons. In Project Tempest, we do this. We have the Shield system, which gives you the complete system across the entire season, so everything to work on week by week. Then we go deeper in the Dangerous Woman Society. We build you your fitness programs around the seasonal aspects. We give you, seasonal frequency work. There's so much stuff. It's all built around this concept that we need to align and do the right work at the right time. Because if you run winter protocols in the summer, yeah, you'll get a result, but the result won't be as good as if you'd ran it at the right time. You can still do the same kind of stuff all year, but usually it's at a cost. It costs you your capacity. It costs you subpar results. So this is what we're trying to do, because the right work at the right time will be so much more beneficial than just trying to push through and do whatever, whenever, because that's not the way it works. Whether you want it or not, this seasonal stuff happens to you. You are part of the cycle. So learning how this works and how to implement it into your own life is huge. And as I said, capacity is a huge part of that, because your capacity shifts with the rings, in particular across the season. Yes, it shifts in the micro, so across the 90-minute, across the daily, across the weekly, across the monthly, and we have things to factor that in. But the bigger picture is the seasons.